Are you concerned about all this corruption being misgendered as conspiracies? Well, don't you worry. Sit back, relax, and join in the conversation as we talk with today's guest. Welcome to another LSB Film Productions podcast with your host, Chris Brooks.
Hello and welcome to the channel. It's me, Chris Brooks, and welcome to today's podcast. I've got back the wonderful Irene Chain, who is or was a midwife, and she has been hell-bent on taking legal action, lawful action, I should say, against the critters, especially when it came to the old inoculations. She's been doing marvellous things. She's just written a book, which we will talk about in a little while. Let's get into this. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the show, Irene.
Well, thank you for inviting me back again. Lots of things have happened since we went spoke last time. I mean, I went through 5 days of a criminal court, 5 judges.
How did that go?
Well, there's 4 days in court. Well, the thing is that you don't know what's going to happen when you walk in there. And a lot of people were going in and saying, well, there's no jurisdiction and I'm out of here and all that. But within Landsare Water Council, we thought, well, how can you hold them to account if you haven't got evidence behind them? So we agreed to go through with the show, basically. And what happened is that in Landsare Water Council, we turned it into a public inquiry. And we put in an international investigation team. So as fast as their evidence was coming in, we were pushing it through to the investigation team who were, going up on it. Well, they got no factual evidence or anything. And they submitted, 300, 100 pages of reports. And then, of course, we'll get into the forged documents, forging my signature to try and convict me on a day I was in hospital having surgery. It was unbelievable, I'm supposed
It
to
really
have,
is unbelievable, isn't it?
I'm supposed to have been in 3 places at once. I'm supposed to have been in the hospital, which I was there at 8:30 in the morning, didn't get out till 8:30 at night. But then I was supposed to be in a pharmacy picking up some oxytocin when I wasn't even practicing. I was ill. I was waiting for surgery, man. And then I was also supposed, I gave a woman a not dated lab form because she didn't take the thingy-ma-do in her arm and was a nurse, and I gave her all the forms that she needed because there was, no midwives, and her choice, she probably didn't want a vaccinated midwife, So what they did was, the lawyers come in and it's, I believe Miss Chain is going to continue practicing midwifery, even though she's got catheters and tubes in her system. It's like, so it all started off with, we went in, the first judges were really downright rude. I put my ears to one side because I couldn't hear the judge. And I think Tracy, our authority for Indigenous people in Landsare Water Council, went in there with me to give me a little bit of support because I've never been in a criminal court before. I'd looked after 1,000 women in the community, and there's my name up in the same community criminal court.
Did you find it quite daunting then?
Well, I did, because there were some of the people in there that I'd been to birth with. You're thinking, oh, well, now you're a criminal here. But I turned it into fun, really. It was very stressful. But if I went out shopping, I mean, I'll go in and I'll say, do you serve criminals? It's like, you've got to have that sense of humour, because if you don't have that, on this day we go in, the judge has got this red coat and a blonde hair, and I turned my head to one side because I couldn't hear, and she's, you look at me, you're disrespectful, So I stood up and I said, well, the only one disrespectful in here is you, because I've looked after thousands of women in these families and I've never been disrespectful to anybody. Well, that was it. Court adjourned, another hearing. So by the time we got to number 3, we kind of twigged onto the power of attorney thing. because that's what they're using on the, I don't know if it's the USC or if it's the bonds they're creating, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, so they're kind of playing around with all that. So that's why they keep changing judges, and that's why they keep changing court venues, because they keep creating more events so they can money launder it, basically. Yeah. So we found out that, I think it was because I'd sold my house, that the banks had put a power of attorney on me. So you go to a bank and you get a mortgage, and two clerks have put their names up as a power of attorney, and it says this power of attorney is not revoked unless there's an event. So in Lanzair Water Council, an
What
event's
kind of
fraud.
event?
Well, an event's fraud. So,
Oh,
so in Lanzair Water Council put a public notice of N72 as an event, and then we created my uh, certificate of beneficiary to legal name and a trust deed.
so
You know,
this is the personal grievance filed 1st of December 2024, violation of rights. Is that the one?
no, no, this is like a year later. This
Oh,
is like
right,
it was
okay.
because the court case was in February, right? So this is going back February, September, August 2023. You know, you're
Right,
coming
okay,
right
gotcha.
through for a year. So anyhow, we took this trust deed in and this trust deed certificate, and the judge was stood up there, and the judge was really rude. He was really not nice
Like,
at all.
as
So I
in
just walked up.
condescending.
Yeah, so I
Mm.
walked up and just slammed it on his desk. I'm just like, here's my trust deed, I'm beneficiary. I'm Irene Bourne here, tanker to Fenderweather, in God we trust, and all of this, and put it on his desk. So he adjourned the court, walked out. We went back in after half an hour, and he says, "May I call you Irene?" I says, "Oh, that would be very nice, thank you."
Mm.
And then he did start to work with me, right? He did point out, was I registered at the time I handed them out, which I was registered because I did it before I was fired. Um, uh, and did I have a practicing certificate? Well, yes, I did until yes, I did. Didn't they suspended, nominated in a clinical setting, which was my garden,
Right, you just broke up for that
and booed
last
me
little
walking
bit.
around a bit. Well, practicing not vaccinated in a clinical setting causing harm to the public, which was my back garden in my private
Mm.
property. And the woman Boomy was a friend who couldn't get family over here, and she was by herself, and I was not well. So I said, "Well, you can just start your labour off in my garden." So she did, and then the hospital refused me in, and then it was this Emma Farmer, this manager, that turned around and reported me to Midwifery Council for practicing not vaccinated in a clinical setting, just making up stories that I was in the hospital. And the only time I'd been in hospital umpteen times was in and out for my accident and emergency cases, and seeing the docs, in all that time. We even put like a statement of truth in there to tell them that we sent all my hospital details in to say, look, it's impossible for me to have done anything. And they
Mm.
just ignored everything. They didn't read any of it. So what happened is then I stood up and I said, well, I want a trial by jury by my peers. Well, it's not a criminal offence. You're not going to be put in prison. And I says, well, what am I doing in a criminal court then?
Yeah, that's a little bit contradictory,
Simple
isn't it?
question, right? And why should it take 4 days of public money? I did an IOA request on these lawyers, Meredith Connell, who they contract to, or a private prosecuting law firm on Dun and Bradstreet. So they're foreign entities administering without right,
Did you know
basically.
everything is registered on Dun and Bradstreet? Our
They're all
local
on it.
our local council here in Thetford is on the Dun and Bradstreet.
Yeah,
It's
they're like, and they create a corporation within a corporation within a corporation, so nobody takes accountability. So what happened is then I got on to judge number four, I think, four or five, can't remember which one, four, and they were adamant they were still going to take it to trial. Well, it's cost the public, just for the lawyers, $55,000 for 5 forms. It's like unbelievable, right? So anyhow, we all went in. So this time I'd done it, with Inland Water Council and colleagues up and down the country, and I had to do a lot of learning about the laws. It wasn't just common law; it was their acts. Yeah, and then later on, I got to know about military law and executive orders and all of those things. So I went in well equipped, and the judge says to me, well, we'll give you an amicus. And I says, well, he's only there for translation purposes because I'm me. I'm Irene, I'm here, and no one's got the accolades that I've got because of the 42 years experience of managing hospitals, writing guidelines, knowing about the fair processes and natural justice and all of those things. So only I could answer for I, really, only I for I.
Yeah, that's it.
And so what I did was we got counters then, and she set the court. I've got family friends from China coming over in February, and I told her that. So she decided to put the court trial right bang in the middle of their visit, just to add a bit of stress. And the 4 days was like, they brought in I think it was 6 witnesses, and even the CEO of Midwifery Council, she just lied to her back teeth up there, said, demeaning me. So, well, you can be qualified for 25 years, but it doesn't mean to say you've got any experience. Well, I've sent her my CV and I've applied for a job with them. And when I came back to the country, I'd sent her my CV. She just denied ever seeing it, And then the beautiful thing is she was up there and she obviously didn't know her job. She showed incompetency up there. And I just said, you held secret meetings with this Emma Farmer. You haven't provided minutes of those meetings. You didn't even give me opportunity to be there, which is a breach of the principles of natural justice and employment law things. You fired me. You suspended me on a lie. And she went, yes, in front of our public inquiry, and everybody stood up
Bloody hell.
clapping. Yeah. So we got that in the court transcripts, right? So what happened was just before we went into that court, I stood up there. I'm Irene, and all this. I'm born here. Tangata Whenua, Timona Nui Akiwa, you've got no jurisdiction and all this, right? So she held up the court and we met with the amicus. Well, the amicus came through, and of course they do this plea bargaining with you. You've got to plead guilty to one account because that's the only way they can launder the money. It's the only way they can create a bond. They've got to have one guilty.
Yeah.
There's got to be one charge, right? So we went through all that and we said, right, we'll contract with you if you follow the Evidence Act 2006, act in good faith, and follow the principles of natural justice, ABC. So he toddled off, went out, spoke to the judge, came back and said, okay. And I said, I want all the court transcripts because so far you've denied everything. Yeah. So we got court transcripts, but they've edited them. They've cut out the convenient parts.
Surely that in itself is a felony, if you want to say, if not a felony. Is it a felony?
Yeah, well, felony, yeah. Well, our court, right? Our court, our people, our public inquiry, well, they were all recording it in any case, So I don't know what they thought that they were going to get away with. So anyhow, she goes off the stand, and then they bring on someone else who's supposed to be the midwifery advisor. Now, she was lying through her back teeth because she claimed she was working on the ground in COVID and that the women got exceptional care. I said, what? They got weighing scales dumped on doorsteps to do their own postnatal visits. There was no midwives. Women were being checked in cars.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Everybody was locked in the house. I saw broken windows, yeah, family violence, you know, evidence of that. And all she was doing was IT, running over the health sector IT thing, because I've worked with the IT systems for 20 years, supporting midwives,
Mm.
right? Because of the interrogation midwives get, I went through every health and disciplinary complaint against a midwife. I listed the whole lot of them. And I went into the IT service that we used and I said, right, can we have red flags here? Can we have red flags here? Can we design it so it's reflective practice? Can we protect these midwives? And that's what I was doing. Well, this Kaz Jane was overseeing all that nearly full time. So hardly come out with the experience she claims. Of course, I asked her, do you know what anticipatory care is? Well, you know what anticipatory is. It's thinking ahead, isn't it? It's planning ahead, taking a history. Oh, I have no idea what that is. Of course, I'm shouting out in the court. I question this
Mm.
witness's credibility
She
three
needs to
times
spend.
in the courtroom.
She needs to spend a month with the World Economic Forum. She'll get to know all
Absolutely.
about
Well, you could see that
caring.
because even in front of the public, which they kept out of the court transcripts, was I said, well, this was COVID time. So the woman can't get a caregiver. And I gave her forms. So at least she could get tests done and find somebody. And she was a nurse in any case.
Mm.
So, she was a very highly skilled nurse. So they undermined the woman's credibility and experience and says, oh, well, nurses know nothing about obstetrics. If they can't self-care, people can't self-care. They're all stupid. So this came out and the public were just they were just creasing up with laughter because they couldn't believe what they were saying.
Mm.
So I says,
Proper
you would
clown
just
world.
dump a woman? She says, yes, in front of everybody. So I says, this is not about health. Had there been had I not declined to take this and had you not fired me, I wouldn't have had to give the forms out so far in advance. Yeah. I
Mm.
wouldn't have even thought about it because I'd be seeing them. So, it's all my fault because I'm fired. I says, I've never lost a woman or baby in my entire life. So why would you start to discredit me? And it's all because I didn't take the OB-do in my arm. And none of this would have happened. I wouldn't have been in a criminal court. Women would have still been nurtured, and I probably wouldn't have had the stress or lost my hair or whatever,
Mm.
but they didn't give a toss about that.
I mean,
So she lied.
I have to say, just quick diversion. Um,
Yeah.
what with being on Facebook and that, and you see like the adverts for get your flu shots, get your
Mm.
boosters and all that, and the comments now compared to what it was back in 2020, they're so different. It's like
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah. On your bike. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. You
So
take off. We're not doing it.
there's so much, there's so many more people now on our side as to what there was then. So I find that quite reassuring. And I don't know whether you've noticed that, whether there's a huge turnaround on just the lack of trust now in the establishment.
There's a total lack of trust because I still help with homeopathy and frequency healing and helping the vaccine injured and you know people uh, find me and we do it pro bono. Our communities donate money into it. So from that money, I get remedies,
Mm.
and help those that haven't got the money or haven't got the funds. Uh, because, well, I took my husband in. I mean, I can diverse from that because they nearly killed him in the hospital and forced the CPAP on him and the remdesivir, and that's in the book. In their documents. Your wife declines remdesivir, but they gave it in any case. And they put him on 10 milligrams of Valium a day for an alcohol withdrawal that he didn't have because he was over 70. So probably knocking him off the plot. So by the time I got to see him, it was incoherent. and I turned that around. I managed to get some ivermectin and homeopathy, and it picked up quickly. But I had to really stand up to them for that. But
He's doing okay now, though, yeah?
they've scarred his lungs, and his memory has been affected from all that. So it's taken a couple of years for him to start to build that back up again. So I did take him in for a check, but they've scarred his lungs. And then she says, "Oh, his blood pressure's up slightly. I think it was 150/80." And they said, "Oh, we've reduced the threshold. Would you like some blood pressure pills?" I said, "No, but you're quite welcome to take them if you want."
This is it. This is, and I've said this many times that doctors are now just drug dealers. They're
Yeah,
salesmen.
they're just popping pills. Yeah, well,
Mm.
as I go down this story through the Health Practitioners Tribunal, which they held with me not being there, and I was an A&E, that was the same. It was uh, the same kind of, thing. This is what they're doing: is they're pushing the pills, they're ignoring your health and well-being. There's not one iota about health in this at all.
No. Get your vitamin D from the
No,
sun, go and exercise, go, none of that. Just, yeah, I'll take this.
none of that at all. And I've always been holistic anyhow, I think since 2003, because I lost my bowel when I was younger through stress and doctors' laxatives and stuff. So
Really?
I spent my life, I've only got like a foot of it. So I spent my life looking into it, and it was the homeopaths that actually got me back on track.
Well,
But
at least
I've got
people
like,
can't accuse you of being full of shit.
no,
Excuse
absolutely. It just,
my vulgar.
yeah. Well, with all the stress I was, full
Yeah.
of their bit. It was unbelievable. So yeah, going back into the court case thing, then they brought the guys from the ultrasound departments and the laboratories, and nobody could say when these forms were signed, so they were all assumptions, and none of the results came to me. They went to uh, a midwife I was helping, because everything went to her as an EDI, because I was doing a bit of part-time, and I came back in to help her because she was being thrashed by the system and
Mm.
couldn't claim to pay her fees to them. So I said, "Well, I'll go self-employed and you can subcontract to me." So I was helping her out. So that's the only reason I went by. But there was claims of writing 330 forms there, and our investigation team checked on that, and there was a glitch from the health system sending the results there. None of them came to me, but they still wanted to go ahead with these forms. And this Jane Birdsall, this enforcement woman, she didn't like me because I got fed up with them getting attacked, so I sent them cease and desist notices and an
Bet that
invoice
went
to
down
a
well.
home address. Well, that's why she pushed even further for the court case. you know. So she was in there with her handler, in the courtroom, as they do, all intimidating the witnesses. But they couldn't tell when the investigations were done, and they submitted the reports from the ultrasound departments, and it said, "Bad luck, we can't find anything." Well, who's writing bad luck on it? you know, and
Bad
Jane
luck on an
Birdsall
official
will
piece of.
put,
Mm.
yeah. And she admitted, "Oh, well, Irene's on our radar." All these words in there. Yeah. And in the midwifery council documents, I got like, "Well, we're not remove your resignation." Yes, I've got to go back to the October 2021 when they first put the mandates out. They kind of said, "Well, you're going to be mandated," and it was like a two-page document that they sent to us. So I went through every paragraph back, right back. "This is the breach of human rights. I'm really concerned. Please send me the evidence to back up your claims."
Mm.
So I really I put it in a very professional document, and sent it back to them, so that peeved them off a little bit more as well. So I could see what was coming, and I was seeing like miscarriages and stuff like that. So then I decided to resign on the 5th of December. And in their documents, it says, "Oh, we were just too busy with new registration, so we're not going to remove the resignation." And then they all curl-tailed in. So when they got this report from Miss Emma Farmer that I was practicing in a clinical setting, that's when they decided to suspend me and hold me prisoner, because that's the only way they could put me through all this, right? So it's the Ministry of Health taking me through criminal court, but the Board of Midwifery Council is employed by the Ministry of Health. It's put in place by the Ministry of Health. And so is the Health Practitioners Tribunal put in by the Ministry of Health. So I was heading for a double jeopardy trial for
I
the
mean, the
same
fact that you can
document.
laugh about it and the fact that you've got a constant grin on your face is like kudos to you. Because I imagine lots of people who had to endure this and the thought of court cases and having your name dragged through the mud, a lot of people that would have just broke them, wouldn't it?
I think I was prepared and put through it because in 2015 there was one complaint where the woman went against my advice, ate a KFC, got a liver issue, nothing to do with me, and I went through 3 years of interrogation and I was suicidal. And that's when I learned about the natural justice and the system and everything else to improve that.
So it took you rock bottom to then build
Yeah, so
yourself
I
back
woke
up.
up and it took me, so by chance, the universe took me to China for 5 years and got me out of the place to rev me up. So I did a lot more work there, face-to-face training, worked sometimes 16 hours a day, but reduced the C-sections, and that really put that confidence back in because they just knocked everything out after all the years. It's like they don't stop digging. It's like, they'd even pull you out your coffin to get you into a courtroom.
Yeah,
It's like,
as long as I could get some of this out of you.
yeah, it's all about money, which we've learned all about this. So anyhow, they went on and they wasted 2 whole days on the guys who headed the lab test, headed the ultrasound departments, telling us about their process and how things happen there. And that had got nothing to do with the claim because the question was I registered? Yeah. So going back to the Midwifery Council being too busy, and in an affidavit from the Midwifery Council, yeah, because I'd taken Midwifery Council to the High Court before, they weren't answering me. So I thought, right, I'm taking you to High Court, and that means you've got to answer me. So they sent me a 400-page affidavit. Well, this is how busy they were.
They sent
I've
you an
got the
affidavit.
Yeah, they sent me an affidavit, but they sent me everything, which is just about put a rope round the necks, basically, right? And in that, because they were too busy, so you've got the CEO of Midwifery Council, the Susan Calvert, you've got Emma Farmer there, you've got Jane Birdsall there from the Ministry of Health Enforcement, right? All taking an entire day communicating about my practicing not vaccinated in a clinical setting, but they were too busy to remove the registration 3 weeks before, which is a breach of employment law. You can't refuse a resignation.
No, that's all on you, isn't it? That's
And
your
even
choice.
even the lawyer for PCC, the Adam Lewis, I've name shamed and blamed him in the book, so I may as well name shame and blame them here. He actually sent, I'm writing a little wee note to I found a website with her name on it, with this gentle birth. And like, I knew nothing about this. So it didn't even think to ring the other midwives up that were on there to see if I was still there. So they just sent this screenshot and shoved it through the courts as evidence. It's like, I didn't have a thing in there, so it went on for 4 long days. But what annoyed me was outside we've got the Voices for Freedom, and we've got people carrying posters of the vaccine injured and the whole outside of the courts lined up. And these people, the enforcements, the Jane Birdsall and the lot of them, walked past those and didn't batter an eyelid, and still pushing the
You know what?
yeah, the bio, whatever they are now. It was just evil. It was, you could sense it. So we went through all that, and then the lawyer wanted, oh God, she wanted to know all about oxytocin and what it was given her for in birth because they forged the prescriptions. But I'd never seen these MPSO forms before, or these prescription forms. I took an original green one, I think, in November for one because it's a practitioner's order supply, a green one. And I walked in there because I've been in China, so I come back, didn't know what they were doing here. So I took it in and he ripped it up. He says, we don't use those anymore. We just do it all online for you. And I said, fine. So the next thing, the investigation team said, well, there should be an original form. So Jane Birdsall in one of her messages to the pharmacist says, well, I'll give it a go. So she did, created them, forged my signatures. So
That's
I sent that to the international forensic team in Landsare Water Council. And they've come back and they said, look, we've checked all Irene's signatures. We've even looked at the twos and the figures and they all match her writing. So we notified the courts of perjury, right? And the judges ignored it. And in a response, she says, oh, well, how dare you mention perjury in my court?
in a
And
perjury court.
yeah, and my poor attitude and my bad attitude. Well, there was no bad attitude with her. We were trying to work with them. We were trying to save them to do the right thing. So obviously, she her head was like down. So, and yeah, she decided to do a decision after the court hearing, which was about a month later. So I got my beautiful support team again. I think there was about 20 odd of us goes down there to that court. We've got the posters outside and we go in there and the amicus sits with me and he says, I'm really worried about you. You've got to give up this living man thing, this sovereign citizen thing. It'll make your sentencing much more lenient.
Well, I
Well, he
do have
didn't
to say
realise.
that that's a bit of an oxymoron, isn't it? Sovereign
Yeah,
citizen.
well, you can't be both sovereign and citizen at the
No,
same time. You can't even be sovereign here because it all belongs to the United Nations. I mean, nothing sovereign really, is it? You
no.
know. So anyhow, I've sat with him for half an hour, and I've got one of the uh, public inquiry members in there with me because Tracy couldn't be with me that time, and she's nearly in tears, because of what he's saying and the examples he's giving. And he says, well, it's like you could be with hands tied on the floor, knocked down on the floor, and I'm here to save you the punches. I says, well, I can save my own punches, thank you very much. I don't need you to save me.
You're like Supergram.
Yeah, so we went into the courtroom, right? So she says, I've convicted you on all 5 charges. That was it for me because I stood up and said, right, acted in bad faith, no jurisdiction, breach of contract. Come on, guys, we're out of here. So I walked out. So I think everybody had come from all over Auckland to be at this courtroom for 2.5 minutes. The shortest
But what a
in
two and a
court
half minutes
history.
it was.
What it was, yeah, because I mean, we've got that on record. So the next time I go in and she's doing the sentencing, so and then she tries to backtrack and said, well, the first one was so we could get to know more about you, and probably give you a better decision. Know more about me. I said, you've got my health records, you've got my CV. I said, how much more about me? You've had 4 days in a trial. You need
Mm.
to know, yeah? So then, of course, after that, I put her a notice of repudiation then. Supposed to be taken serious by judges. I repudiate your offer of repudiation. Thank you very much.
I've never even heard that word before.
Yeah, well, this week it's a big learning point that came through. So they take it very, it's supposed to take it very seriously. So we said like breach of contract, uh, acting in bad faith, admitting perjury in the courtroom. So we listed all that in there. Then I delivered it to one of the courts, so she hadn't got it. And when she gave this second sentencing, she'd ignored that. So she still convicted me on 5, but it also had Section 281 of the Criminal Procedures Act, where I'm exempt, all persons or all peoples are exempt from liability charges. So I sent her that in. Yes, I said, well, you can't charge me anything. It started off at $10,000 a form, 50,000. Yeah. So there they are in this courtroom bartering at my net worth. How much can I afford to pay them? The prosecution lawyer saying, "Oh, well, you can charge a 2,000, 5,000." Suddenly gone down from 50, like. And then the amicus is saying, "Well, maybe 1,000." I'm saying that's slavery.
Mm.
In
It
front of
just
the
baffles me.
public.
Baffles me
So
because these
we
people
had
must be aware they are still human. Well, I'd like to think that they're human, and so just their own moral compass must be so off the till. It's
yeah.
unbelievable.
Well, yeah, well, I walked up and I gave them the email that a woman had sent and said these forms were given to us in advance on the 14th of November, sent straight to them. Oh, that's hearsay. But they're emails and they can make up stories, so they assumed everything. So at the end of it, she says, "Oh, uh, because it has to be proven, right? So if you look up proven in the dictionary, it means an argument. It it's like if I believe your story, you're convicted. Basically, that's all it is. So anyhow, at the end of it, I gave her that, put it on her desk, and I says to her, "How dare you?" And then I said to her, "Are you a clerk dressed up as a judge? Yeah, in this private courtroom by lawyers paid for by the prosecution. This is the kangaroo court." And I looked at it and I said, "And the only criminals in here is this, and this." And like the
What did they say
security
to
guy
that?
was, well, the security guy was coming in from the back, but we've got like 30 members of the public sat there, and they went said to the security guys, "And don't you touch her."
Oh, I wish
Being
this was on
police
film.
people
I wish
power.
somebody
Yeah.
recorded this on their camera.
Yeah, well, I've put it all in the book and I've brought it to life because I've put the humor. You can only look at it as humor, right?
Mm.
But my heart goes out because people didn't have the strength I had to stand up to it, right? And I have to do it for the kids. You've got to do it for the future, and you've got to expose these people because otherwise it will never stop. And the only way to do that is name, shame, and blame them, right? So anyhow, that came to that, and as soon as that came through, I got a delivery notice of the Health Practitioners Disciplinary Tribunal for the same forms and the same forged supplier's prescription form.
Well, they're persistent. We'll give them that.
Yeah, well, they were persistent, but then I said, well, they've even admitted in their email to me they've got no contract. I says, "I'm retired. I'm not an employee. Tribunals are for employees. Can you not get this through? I'm not even well enough to do this."
Mm.
So because we had the public with us in Auckland, yeah, we went through one, two, three different courts in Auckland, by the way. So then they decided to think I was going to travel from Auckland to Wellington, which is an 8-hour drive in my ill health. Yeah. But they paid these people that had forged documents, lied, to fly from Auckland to go to Wellington and put them in a 5-star hotel in a private room at public expense. But then it gets even better than that because I had to go. I think the universe says, "Well, we know, Irene, we're just going to make you a bit more sick." So I got a bit more sick and I had to go to the doctor, got a doctor's note. The doctor wouldn't say that I had a systemic fungal infection and a systemic viral infection because of stress. All she would say in a letter is, "Cannot travel to Wellington." So Inland's Air Water Council, our attorney office, contacted them, and I did, and I said, "This matter is being dealt with attorney in attorney office, Inland's Air Water Council. All correspondence, everything has to go there."
Mm.
It's like I was ill. Uh, And then I realised there was no audio visual link, so they were not wanting the public to go there. So we got a bit smart and put a public notice out. Irene needs your help. Well, this went worldwide on this public notice. It went to Dr. Alliance and everything. So 200 members of the public rang them up demanding for an AVL link. Well, it is a public inquiry. And they were denied. There were only 4 people got through to that. I knew nothing about the link because the doctor had given me these meds and I was knocked out for 24 hours. So I woke up something like, I think it was 5 o'clock that evening, the day before their so-called tribunal, which they were still going to go and do whether I was there or not. And they'd had another meeting about an AVL link. And the most ironic thing, on the minutes of the meeting, I was there at the meeting. I was there in the document. It's like Houdini, you know. So anyhow, they'd had a meeting and decided they were going to do AVL links. And they actually, I think they sent me one late at night, which I wasn't going to be on because I wasn't well in any case. So I think might be the independent journalists got one, and so did another one. So there was only 4 people could get onto the link, and the one they sent, and the ones they sent to the public, there was a $10,000 fine if they shared it. So yeah, as it would have it, my condition worsened. So then I was in the A&E the following morning with like tubes in my bladder and everything, happening in the hospital there. And they were notified I was in A&E, right? They adjourned the meeting to see if they were going to go ahead. And because the attorney's office in Landsberg Water Council called them out for harassment and notified the Minister of Health, they carried on. And then
I don't really know what to say because it's so just the level of corruption, and it's not even like ignorance or just people not being very good at their job.
oh,
It's just damn right corruption.
yeah, just evil. We've got it really bad here in Australia and New Zealand, believe you me. Really bad.
Has it got a little bit better since old horse has stepped down? Jacinda,
No, no,
no.
no, because we're getting horse rustling, properties being taken, floods, you know, fraudulent things, people getting evicted, you know.
This is
It's
all
the
part
same
of
in the
the Great
UK.
Reset.
It's all part. They're just pushing it through, aren't they? So, but the people are standing up to it. People are standing up and they're getting scared. And I can tell you another little story. Then I think you have to get Tracy on for that one because she's got some amazing cases. They're just taking the councils to the High Court.
Really, I'd love to hear that. Yeah.
Well, the judge was so scared, he actually did an AVL link because we had 40 members of the public there going to bring the council down because what they've done is they've put these bailiffs in their offices, which aren't even a company. You know? So
Yeah.
they sent them a statutory demand so we're about to try and liquidate them in Landsgate Water Council. The judge was so scared. He did an AVL link from the next room in the High Court. They've changed the High Court venue because it won't into a smaller one because they don't want the public in there. I mean, they're stupid. I mean, you know. So that's the same thing. So we're getting back now to this health practitioners tribunal. So I'm in the hospital. Well, this is different to the times I was in there where they were forcing PCRs and kidnapping husband and doing all this stuff. And I was in there and I said, do you treat criminals in here? They all looked at me. I says, well, the reason I'm a criminal and the reason I'm like this is because I'm standing up for every one of you. Well,
Hmm.
that was it. I got 3 doctors, 3 nurses. I got first class treatment.
Really?
Really, I think they're waking up to know that there's something wrong, they have been hoodwinked, a lot of them. Like, oh, so I'm dealing with that, and they're still going on with this case. So I got the feedback from Mike B and the others, so they take notes. But what they'd done is with these witnesses, the pharmacist was so upset because I'd reported him to the fraud squad and called him out in the previous court. He was badly treated by me in the criminal court, so he wanted to be heard in the private. So they closed the AVL link off to the public and heard them all in the private. So nobody knows what's been said or done. So anyhow, now they've gone, right? So anyhow, so they've had a statutory demand put through, which means if they don't respond to it, we can probably try and liquidate them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't realise the seriousness of that. And I've put a personal grievance through, right? But we put the personal grievance into the courts and another notice of repudiation. And the court said, well, we've got no jurisdiction to answer complaints. You've got to go to the Chief Justice Complaints Commissioner. So it was forwarded it to him. And in his own writing, he says, oh, it's okay, the judges can commit perjury. Yeah. You can't go outside New Zealand if you want an investigation team because we don't look at those things. Yeah. So he's just admitted to allowing the judges. And his end report was, I suggest you get a lawyer and take it to the courts. That was the judge. So where's the hope in there? So anyhow, it's all in the book. It's all in the book. I mean, like, if people want to learn how to stand up for themselves and learn about that system and just see how corrupt it is. I mean,
how can people find your book?
Well, what they do, I've given you the public notice. So what we've done is I'm not charging people as such for the book. If they make a small donation, it would be $5, whatever, they'll get a PDF of the book. Okay. Because we need this truth to come out. And the small donations that come in will help us do the liquidation and do what we need to do with these people to stop them. Because in the UK, you had the report come out where 16 midwives and nurses committed suicide because of the interrogation. I had a friend took her life in 2013. They're on antidepressants. They just don't speak out. Even the ones that haven't taken this, even when you speak it, they're women having to feed their kids, and a lot of them are in there, right? And they know they don't like what they're saying, but they've got it's a slave contract, and they're just too afraid to come out. Well, I've sent it all. I don't know if I think something's working. I sent it to the SAF hotline, force hotline. New Zealand needs your help. If this case goes through, then not one health professional is going to come out the closet. So I think something's happening behind the scenes. We know something's happening somewhere. We can't see it. We would like to see it. We'd like to see first arrests, but you've got to see that there are small changes coming through, like in Australia where Dr. Bray, had his suspension overturned. So people are winning cases everywhere and it's coming through. So there must be changes to make that happen, because 2-3 years ago you wouldn't get anywhere with it.
No, that's it. Well, we are now in the what is it? The era of Aquarius. So truth is supposed to come out and shed light on the darkness.
Well, I've certainly flooded it out in that book. It's 700 pages of it.
Well, it is a long book. It must have taken a lot of time and effort.
It kind of flows through, I think, when you've been through it, because I'm an author in any case. So I wrote 5 midwifery integrated textbooks in 10 months when I was in China. So I think it's just the knowledge flowing through, the archaic library coming out. I'm meant to be doing this. I just wake up every morning, look at the clouds, and I just
You
Thank
do,
you, God, for putting me through this.
I was just going to say you're doing God's work.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
It has to be, and it's got to come out, and the people need to wake up and doing what you do, and we coming out and talking about it. I mean, been on the ground floor. It's going to get shared. Or, people do share it. I've shared a lot of things out, and it's going to places. I think the Doctors Alliance has got 100,000 people, I think, on it. So it just takes one or two shares for it to go out because we are the news. You're the news, which is amazing. I mean, I did some journalism in China, a little bit as well as midwifery. I think I've done most things. And it's important to bring that truth around. And I think, that's where my investigation brain
mm,
comes out to dig deeper because these people managing this, I mean, you've got the Phyllis Teamer from the PCC. Well, she was on the lay board of the Midwifery Council. There's a conflict of interest. Well, she's also the one pushing fluoride in as an ex-MP, you know.
I think
You
they're
got the
pushing for that
Jane.
here as well in the water. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we've had the disasters as well, the Pike River disasters and stuff like that. And Jane Birdsall was the health and safety advisor for that, which we know is a insurance fraud thing. The people know the truth in that. So because New Zealand's very small, it's easy to capture what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's harder in the UK. I mean, I've had breakfast with Jacinda Ardern.
Have you?
Uh, she took a selfie with me. It's in the book. She's not going to like what I wrote because I put a meme in it with a little thing coming out. This you doesn't realise I'm trying to kill her.
Oh dear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, I did a lot there, so I knew all of them and Helen Clark and all the others. If I'd have known,
Well,
it would have been quite different.
I would say that there's definitely change coming because obviously you've had Ardern, she's gone now. Trudeau has now stepped down in
Yeah,
Canada, and he's been the president there for God decades, hasn't he?
absolutely.
He's the only
He,
one that I've
she. We
known.
don't even know what we're looking at, do we? Is it he, she? I can't make my mind up these days.
Yeah, there is that. There is that. So let's end it on a positive then. What do you, or hopefully on a positive, what do you think? Where are we going to be in like 5, 10 years time? Do you see a good change coming in?
Yeah, a good change. It is a spiritual change. You feel it. I feel it. I feel the awakening. I feel people are more considerate. I think the ones that are really not awake are never going to wake up.
Yeah.
But there's the ones that are iffing. And I was down at a place where they do weddings and that beautiful place, at Trewell Lawn in Queenstown, and people were coming to stay in the cottages there. And there was a woman from Israel that had been in the bullet, spies of bullets, and I just gave her, optimism. And I said, look, good things are coming. Good things are around the corner. And we've just got to get through this chaos because out of chaos comes goodness, really.
Yeah.
We've got to go
Goodness.
through it and just nurture each other. So I see it. I mean, we're all set to go, really. Lots of people behind the scenes all over the UK and everywhere are getting ready. I think Ricardo Bossi says we're not able to self-administer ourselves yet. So I think it will be military that we will
Hmm.
have for a while. I think that will come. I sometimes have visions of that. But you see, when somebody says you don't have the know-how to self-administer, well, I've seen the opposite in the small groups we've got across New Zealand. I've got brilliant mindsets coming together that are already planning and have things in place for things to come through. And that's
That's it.
just me speaking on the ground to give people optimism to say, I've got families here where they've got like the small kids and they're just making ends meet. Yeah. And it's hard because they're still having to work, they're still fighting for their survival kind of thing. And I'll just say, the greatest thing you can do is care for your children. Yeah, there are people like me out there doing things too. Yeah. So your job is to care for the children, care for the older people in the community. That's what we need right now is that help and that support for people with
Light
abuse.
workers.
We need light workers, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's it, definitely. Well, listen, it's been absolutely wonderful listening to you, as it always is. I wish you all the very best with the book. I'll leave links in the description as to where people can get hold of your book. And I hope people, I hope people lap it up, because
Yeah, I've put
once it's out there, then it's doing its thing.
well, there's links to videos, there's factual links that, and I've written it in a very simple language so everybody can understand it. It's gone to China, by the way. I've had it's gone to
That's
China,
good.
Brazil, America.
That's
You
good.
know, it's just getting it out there is what our role is. And then I'll do another PDF because in the book it's got the links to all your podcasts and everybody else's podcasts.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so the book will give the links, so it's not just a book. You'll go to links, you'll be able to see videos, our podcasts from before, Juicy and Lucy, the Tribunals one, all the videos with Counterspin. They just click on the link and it'll take them to that.
Brilliant. Well,
So
I hope it does really, really well,
yeah,
because
well, as long as we
you need
get
it.
as long as we get some funds to take these people down, which is what we've got to do it. It's got to come from the people.
No, absolutely. 100%. Brilliant.
So
Well,
just
yeah, come.
yeah, just send love and light to everybody and say no fear. No
No
fear.
fear. Because that's how they control you. Fear.
That's right. No
Brilliant.
fear. Just love each other, unconditionally. I've got colleagues that kind of shut me out a while ago. They took the jab, they were blinded, but we're all coming together as one because we've all had it. I've had the shedding and got the shingles from it, and we're all jabbed in
Yeah.
one way or the other. We all are. So we've
I
got to
dare say it's
start
in our
loving and
food as well.
nurturing each other. Oh, yeah, it's in
Absolutely.
everything, isn't it? Yeah,
Brilliant.
well, we can't call it fluoride anymore. We've got to call it neurotoxins because they don't like that word.
Okay.
So if you stand up, you don't call it fluoride. You say, you're putting neurotoxins in this water.
Okay, that's an interesting point. Okay. There you go. There you go,
That's
people.
a
You've
good
learned lots today. I hope you've enjoyed listening to Irene and me just sitting there in awe of all the work that Irene's done over the last few years, because she's got more balls than I have. But yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. And everyone watching, I hope you've enjoyed it. And until next time, take care. Speak to you all again soon. Bye for now.